Vancouver is widely regarded as having one of the most beautiful natural settings on Earth. However, it's a busy place. But just across the bridge, and a 20-minute drive along the highway, and you round the corner into Howe Sound. Suddenly, you feel a long, long way from Vancouver. It is a great gift of natural circumstance that a place of such wild beauty survives just next door to the hectic world of 2.5 million people. Into Howe Sound we can escape. To play, to explore, to meet our quiet selves, to find our place in nature. But Howe Sound confronts an uncertain future. Just as it recovers from a damaging industrial history, with recovery marked by the return of herring, salmon, and whales. A raft of new industrial and residential projects are proposed for its shores. An LNG plant, a gravel mine, more logging, and brand new towns. Howe Sound is just now coming back to life. Is all this development the right thing to do? So when we heard that there was a new marine trail in Howe Sound, my brother Tim and I thought it was the right time to get out and take a look. Our general plan is to paddle from Horseshoe Bay into the heart of Howe Sound, and then slowly work our way north to Squamish. We have 5 days, a good weather forecast, and lots of time to poke. Our first stop is Snug Cove on Bowen Island, just across the channel from Horseshoe Bay. Bowen Island is my home, and Snug Cove has a fun little waterfront.
Sea to Sky Marine Trail.
Yeah, it's all right here.
Bowen Island has been home to the Squamish peoples for thousands of years. They call it Qualacum, or Clam Bay, for its rich shellfish beds. European settlers arrived in the 1800s, following loggers that had come earlier to cut the giant forests. Today, Bowen Island, though proud of its separation, is closely tied to life in Vancouver, as is all of Howe Sound. From Snug Cove we head west along Bowen Island's south shore. The island sits at the mouth of Howe Sound and faces the open waters of the Salish Sea. Rounding the southwest tip of Bowen Island at Cape Roger Curtis, we enter the wild archipelago of small islands that make up outer Howe Sound. Thoughts of Vancouver, Horseshoe Bay, and even Snug Cove just evaporate into its quiet space. We never go anywhere in Howe Sound without a face mask and snorkel. There is so much to see just below the surface. The beauty underwater is just astonishing. Ocean life surrounds you in this crazy array of the extraordinary. It's astonishing that such a wild and magical place lies so close to Vancouver. A place like Howe Sound would be a national park just about anywhere else in the world. So the sun was setting on Howe Sound. We headed north to the great little campsite at Atl'ka7tsem Marine Park on the southeast corner of Gambier Island. The next morning we are in no rush to leave Atl'ka7tsem. There's just so much to explore. Atl'ka7tsem is one of 4 sheltered bays that define the southern shore of Gambier Island. Its tidal flats are rich with clams and oyster. Dark midden soils along the shore are full of shells and testify to shellfish harvesting here by the Squamish people for thousands of years. This is a big spirit place. Our plan is to head north along Gambier's eastern shore to a new campsite on the Marine Trail, then hike inland to a lookout over the wild heart of the island. The striking cliffs of nearby Halkett Point are the southwest corner of Gambier Island, Howe Sound's largest island. Offshore of Halkett Point is a favorite site for scuba divers. A cloud sponge reef lies just 30 meters below the surface. Howe Sound is one of the only places in the world where sponge reefs are shallow enough to be reached by divers. These remarkable reefs were only discovered in the last decade and are alive with rockfish, crabs, shrimp, and prawn. It makes me wonder what other secrets are hidden below the waters of Howe Sound. Halkett Point is also the site of the iconic breaching humpback whale video that in 2013 became a symbol of Howe Sound's recovery.
Oh!
How about that?
You get that?
I did.
Our destination is the new Sea to Sky Marine Trail campsite called Ramillies Channel, and we want to try it out.
What a beautiful camp. Looking out over the Ramillies Channel, the wild side of Anvil. This north shore of Gambier is spectacular.
Behind the campsite, there's a trail up the mountain to some spectacular views.
Okie doke.
You betcha. Probably about an hour to the lookout.
This is the wild heart of Gambier Island, a vast wildland forest of lakes and streams hidden away in the very center of Howe Sound. It is this area that was proposed for logging, and it is this area that we all fought so hard to protect. In 2014, there were plans to log this northeast corner of Gambier Island, but residents, educators, and tourism businesses rose up in opposition, saying that the islands of Howe Sound are too precious to log. Squamish Nation finally forced the province to withdraw its plan. It was a great, great victory for the protection of Howe Sound. Next day, our plan is to head over to Pam Rocks and Christie Islet to see their rich wildlife. From there, we'll paddle north to McNabb Creek and then east to another new marine trail campsite called Isleview. Pam Rocks and Christie Islet are part of a submarine ridge of white granite that just pokes above the surface as a series of small reefs and islands. Collectively, these tiny islands host the largest colony of harbor seals in Howe Sound. Pods of orcas visit here, looking to catch unwary seals. Christie Islet is a bird sanctuary and the only major nesting site for seabirds near Vancouver. The bare rock island is alive with cormorants, gulls, and oyster catchers. So we head north under the dark volcanic cliffs of Anvil Island, then make our crossing to McNab Creek. McNab Creek meets the sea across a broad flat of sand, gravel, and seagrass meadow, the second largest estuary in Howe Sound. Estuaries are rich in shellfish, vital feeding grounds for migratory birds, elk, and bear, and nurseries for juvenile salmon and herring. Sadly, a giant gravel mine is proposed right beside McNab Creek. Howe Sound is so vulnerable to industrial proposals because there's no plan to protect her wild beauty and recreation. This is really crazy. We just have to come together and create a vision for a wild Howe Sound. Heading east, we paddle below towering granite cliffs, truly one of the grand spectacles of Howe Sound. It is evening when we arrive at the new Sea to Sky Marine Trail campsite called Isleview.
They've got space for probably 4 or 5 tents. Lovely piece of trail building, and this is a very sheltered little campsite.
The next morning we wake to the still waters of inner Howe Sound. A great sense of the sacred surrounds us. But the question of Howe Sound's future keeps returning to us. How can such a beautiful and magical, yet vulnerable place be protected for generations yet to come? The sun is getting low as we head across to Howe Sound's busier eastern shore with Highway 99 and the popular campground in Porto Cove Provincial Park. Today is our final day. From Porto Cove to Squamish, Howe Sound is a true fjord, a narrow, cliff-walled finger of ocean. Several hours up the Sound, we arrive at the historic mining town of Britannia Beach. Here we meet head-on the busy world of Highway 99. Britannia Beach once hosted the largest copper mine in the British Commonwealth, but the mine was designed before modern environmental standards and was a terrible polluter of Howe Sound. Its toxic waters killed marine life for decades. After remediation was completed in 2007, nearby marine life blossomed, and salmon returned to Britannia Creek for the first time in a century. It is so reassuring to know that nature can be very, very resilient if given a chance. Across the Sound on the west shore is the site of the old wood fiber pulp mill. For 70 years, the mill's wastewater greatly damaged Howe Sound. Pollution control and finally closure in 2007 has allowed marine life to recover. However, a major liquefied natural gas plant is now proposed for wood fiber. If built, giant LNG tankers, several times the size of the Sunshine Coast Ferry, will ply Howe Sound. The wood fiber LNG proposal has created a widespread outcry against this reindustrialization of Howe Sound. Serious public concerns have been voiced about its environmental impacts and the risk it poses to public safety. One of our trip's great surprises was the beauty and magic of the granite shores lining the northern end of Howe Sound. glacier-sculpted whalebacks of granite, tan-stained by a century of tide-carried mine waters, jut westward into Howe Sound at Watts Point. Further north, we paddle below bright granite walls in the shadow of Mount Garibaldi volcano. And then, suddenly, we're at the mouth of the Squamish River and the end of Howe Sound.
Wow, a little hidden world.
It just keeps on going.
Yeah? There's more?
Oh, there's a lot more.
The Squamish Estuary is a broad flatland built by the Squamish River, where it meets the sea and dumps its load of sand and mud. The estuary's fertile marshes and tidal flats are rich with life, and truly the ecological jewel of Howe Sound. So we are at trip's end. Squamish Harbor, our final destination, is nearby. We have paddled Howe Sound to take a look. What we discovered has made us truly thankful for the wild nature we have in our very own backyard. Howe Sound, Vancouver's truly wild neighbor. So close, so rich, so magical, yet so vulnerable. Howe Sound is just too beautiful, too precious, too unique for us to watch it wither in the face of thoughtless development. Who, standing at the opening of Stanley Park in 1888, understood what that park would mean to the health and well-being of Vancouver a century later? I think the moment is now for the friends of Howe Sound and the friends of Vancouver to stand, to speak, and to act. The time is now for all of us to be the ones we have been waiting for.